As you walk in, see if the machine's level. It'd indicate whether it's got a flat tyre, front or rear. And have a look underneath as you're approaching the machine. There could be fluids there, water from the radiator, oil from the gearbox or engine. So that's an indication that there might be something that needs serious work today. The TCLOC acronym that we're using is something that's industry-wide and it's used in heavy industries, trucks and whatnot. So T stands for tyres and wheels, we're checking those. C is for chassis and cracks and bolts and whatnot loose. L, lights and electric. O for oil and fuel. And the last one, controls, cables and controls, particularly on a motorbike. So, have we got the correct PPE on today? Bit of high vis, because on motorbikes it's hard to see you out there, and you know, you want to watch the motorbikes. Helmet is really important, good set of boots, and perhaps, if you can, overalls might cover a few of the other pointy bits. Gloves on these pointy bits as well. But getting into the check, what we're here to do today, we want to be starting off with the tyres and wheels, and we'll work our way through all of those acronyms at once. But looking at this front tyre, it hasn't really got enough tread for the job today. So I'd say it's due for replacement. 80% of your braking is done on the front wheel, and you want good tread up there. It's also perished around the side here. You're looking at where there's any sticks or dirt and stuff jammed on the rim as you come through here. And another check on the wheel here is to see what the spokes sound like. If they've got a nice sound like that both sides, covering all the spokes, just using a screwdriver or something like that, it's good. You can also check them by squeezing them, and if they're not loose, then you know you've got a good wheel there still. If they've got a dull sound like that, then hey, you know that they've got the wrong sound and you've got a loose spoke. Coming down to here, have a look at this valve. You want to have the nut screwed off on that so that that valve can move backwards and forwards when the tyre sometimes moves in the rim. So if you don't, it's going to rip the valve out and it's going to give you a puncture prematurely. Also got a gauge here, it goes 0 to 15 because bikes tend to only use about 12 to 15 psi, and maybe a little bit lower in the really greasy stuff, but you go too low and you're going to have a lot of punches. You go too tight on your pressure above 15 and you're going to be skidding all around on the place. So keep your tyre gauge and your pressures about right. Give it a push down when you're sitting on it and you'll see the bike just squash the tyre a little bit, and that'll give you a good indication that a little bit of flex in the tyre when you're on it with your weight on it, it's about right. Coming up to the suspension here, looking for any oil leaks on the forks coming out top or bottom, and any cuts or damage. That isn't too bad, and it'll probably do the job for today. That's not too bad, that one. Coming along the chassis, on the headstock bearing here, we're looking for any cracks or damage, any grease stuff coming out, coming down the frame, following your hand, looking for any cracks and damage on the frame, coming right around. Oh, at the gear lever here, we might as well check that that's tight on the spline and it's not loose, which is a good sign. A lot of them get quite loose here, they're quite fragile, they break off easily, so be gentle on them and make sure that's got a good fit, otherwise it'll strip off. Going back around the frame, is it bolted on nicely, exhaust still hooked on correctly, yep, looking good. Coming through the engine part here, we're looking for any leaks for oil and fuel leaks, and coming up through here, okay, someone's put it on reserve. I don't know why they've done that, but it'd be better to be down there, because if you're going to run out of fuel, you want to be able to get home again. If it's already on reserve, there's nothing left. Carry on, check the fuel tank. Yep, it's got fuel in there. It's just about full, so that's a good sign. That's got to stay on there. Coming across to the oil level on here, because it's a two-stroke bike, we want to know that's got oil in there, because that feeds in with the petrol to the motor, and if you don't have oil in there, you're going to seize your engine. Alright, coming back down to here, we've got the foot peg. It's a little bit worn out, in fact a lot worn out. You're not going to get ultimate grip on there. The spring's still working okay, but that's good. Side stand, yep, in good condition. You know what's on the other side is the air filter, either under the seat or behind the other cover on the other side. So check that quite regularly. In dusty conditions following the cows, you might have to clean that once a week. Remember, the motocross riders, they do it just about every ride. So think about that. Without good air, it's like holding a sock over your face and you can't really breathe when you're trying to run a marathon. And down through here, yep, swing arm looks reasonably good. Wheel bearing's not good though. That wheel is moving on its axle there, so we've got a loose wheel bearing in there, not ideal. Coming around, chain guard looks alright. Some of them are completely enclosed, so make sure you get inside and have a look and see what the chain's doing. They're getting dry like this one, absolutely worn out. The chain's stuffed. This sprocket here is been chewed out as well. It's got like a bird's beak on it, and you can feel that it's sharp, and the front one will be exactly the same. So when you replace these, you do all at once: chain, rear sprocket and front sprocket, otherwise they wear out prematurely. Check your nut on here is correctly, and that is adjusted properly on there with those little marks at each side is exactly the same where it lines up. Otherwise your wheel's going to be on an angle, so just check your nose on both sides as you go that this is adjusted properly. Coming up through the spring here, not sure what the suspension's like yet, but it was pretty good yesterday if they were using it, so it might be okay still. That frame's not cracked. They often do where the carriers are on here, so just checking all of that. These carriers are only got a certain load limit, so have a look at what the manufacturer's specification is before you start loading them up. Sometimes they have a little one out the front as well. They don't carry much either, so you can't exactly put 2 bags of meal on there. It's going to be too much. Tail light, when we start it up, we'll be checking that. There's no registration on this bike, so you can't use it on the road. It's strictly for being in the paddock behind closed gates only. So just think about that, because that's a legal requirement on roads these days. Tipping the bike over, coming around, we'll grab our screwdriver again just for checking that wheel on this side. We've got more spoke area without the chain guard, so you can hear the difference. All these spokes are absolutely stuffed. They're all wobbling and loose. You can see them going everywhere. So this wheel has to come off and go in for a service and get those spokes redone. Shaking it, like I said before, the wheel bearings had it, but it looks like this swing arm, where it pivots at this point up here, right through there's a bearing. That swing arm is sitting there pretty good, so I'm happy with that. Often they wear out quite easily. Down here, the side stand, in good condition. Still working okay. The rear brake is out of adjustment and not looking good at all, so that's a fail on the rear brake. It needs adjusting up again. This foot peg, no spring left, so your foot's going to go straight to the ground. Not good. It's worn out and needs replacing, so that's a fail. Kickstand, kickstart rather, moving on the shaft, could actually strip the spline, so that's not good, and so that needs attention as well. Coming in here, you've got oil, which is just a bung to fill the bike up with, and down here will be a little bolt that comes out, and that's where you can measure whether the oil's coming out or not. So most of them just have a dipstick here, but these ones are slightly different. Every bike's different, but with a dipstick it's usually just dip it, wipe it, dip it to check it. Cool. Air filter in behind here, or under the seat usually. Check that like I said. The exhaust looks good through here, and frame looks okay too. So we've been right around the bike. It's time to get on and check the controls. To do that, get on here. Just noticing one thing straight away, this handlebar is a little bit worn out. Usually that covers, so if your hand goes in there, it gets your body, it could stab you a lot easier than one that's a little bit more covered, a little bit more protection. Going straight away into the front brake, pulling it in, it goes too far in. It's touching the handlebar before it's even really stopping the bike properly, so that's a fail, it's out of adjustment. Throttle, twist it right up and it springs back, that's a good sign. And when you start it up, go lock to make sure the cables aren't getting pulled and trying to rev it up. This side, the clutch, can't even pull it in with my one finger. No, the cable's absolutely seized, so that's a fail. That needs replacing. Alright, headstock bearings, a way to check that is use what brake you've got, push forward and back and rock forward and back, and you're trying to see whether there's a knock with these bearings here, but it's going to flop backwards and forwards. And you want to see whether that's got nice fluid floating motion there. So your headstock bearings, are they okay or not? Because sometimes they start grabbing and it'll hold the bike a little bit. Starting up the machine, fuel on, kickstands up. Checking if we've got lights. Yep, we've got a light there. Put our hand back here. I can see the tail light's working. That's a good sign. Horn's okay. There's no indicators, so we can't be on the road. That's okay. Alright. We've checked right down the machine. Discovered a few faults. I'm not happy with it. To make sure no one uses it and gets into trouble, we're going to pull the key out and walk away with it and get this thing serviced. You can have a hold card on here, but that doesn't guarantee someone won't still start it up and go off with it. So the safest way is to pull the key and condemn the bike until it's repaired. So we've done our full TCLOC check, tyres and wheels, chassis, lights and electrics, oil, fuel. With a radiator bike you'd need to check the water as well on those ones, and we've done the controls. Make sure you got your correct PPR on, and have a great day out there, team. If you want to know more, go to smarths.co.nz. Cheers.